Hi, my name is Andrea Usry, and I am really pleased to be with you here today. This is really exciting for me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Um, my name is Andrea Usry. I currently work at a safe place, but prior to working to a safe place, I worked at the Lake County Council Against Sexual Assault, which is now the Zacharias Center. It's a rape crisis center. I worked there for 5 years, and then I became a Lake County sheriff. I worked for the Lake County Sheriff's Office for 23 years. I was a deputy, I worked in patrol, I worked in court security. The largest percent of my time was spent in investigations. While I was in investigations, my specialties were school safety, and I was a school resource officer for CEDAL, Special Education District of Lake County. Also, my other specialty was investigation of child abuse and sexual assault. I was promoted to sergeant. I spent some time on highway patrol again on midnights, then back into investigations. Then I was promoted to lieutenant, again in investigations, the last 2 years in community service and working very closely with the schools in unincorporated Lake County, working with lockdown drills and school safety and all that stuff. And my last 2 years was spent, yeah, I just said that, in community service. So rather than just listening to me talk, which I think could be rather boring, I've asked a friend and coworker, Debbie Lear, to interview me. Debbie works at NICASA, and Debbie, would you like to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I have been at NICASA for what feels like eternity at times, but really is about over 30 years. And I too have jumped from spot to spot to spot. It's like I started off working with adults, moved to adolescents, because that is really my true love. Worked in the residential halfway house for NICASA at Bridge House for 12 years. And then went to North Chicago to work with families in need. And for the past 2 years, I've worked with 18 to 25-year-olds and just really love the variety and just love what I do. So that's me.
Thank you, and thanks for your service. So I hear you and my daughter wrote some questions for me.
So
I'm ready to be challenged, because I think there's going to be some challenging questions and I might have to take a minute to think about some of them.
Okay, so let's start with, how did you decide the path that you initially took in your career, or did your career take you?
Okay, good question. So I wanted to do something to help people. And when I was in high school, I did not like school. And I wanted to go out and explore the world. And my dad kept saying, you should be in the military. You should be a cop. You should be in the military. You have such good common sense. You'd be so good in that. I'm like, oh, who wants to be a cop? And who wants to go into the military? No, thank you. So I took some classes at CLC, Lake County College of Lake County. And then I ended up getting married by the time I was 22. And I worked in restaurants. I had 3 kids. I got a divorce. I was working part-time at the Zacharias Center, which was back then the Rape Crisis Center. And then through that, my job took me into hospitals to help support women, men, children who had been sexually assaulted, right? So through that experience, I met a lot of different police officers, and some were great with women and children, and others weren't so good. You could tell they were uncomfortable and really didn't know how to speak to people. So I did a lot of self-reflection, and I decided, you know what, there's a whole lot of people that work in social service that work great with people that have gone through crises and traumatic experiences, but the police just don't seem to be they seem to struggle with showing that softer, a little more sensitive, empathetic side. So honestly, that's what brought me to law enforcement, was working at a rape crisis center, which is, I think,
So, being a woman, do you think your job has been more challenging as opposed to a man? I mean, is there a difference?
I think it is for sure. I'm kind of old now, so when I started in 1996, there were very, very few women that were police officers. In fact, I was told at the Lake County Sheriff's Office that I was the third woman to be hired to be the real police, right? Because they would hire women to do this or to do that, but as far as expecting us to do the same thing as a man, I was one of the first three. And the three of us were all hired within 6 months of each other. In the beginning, it was difficult because the men on the department were kind of like, well, you have to get in a fight. You have to prove yourself. We don't know if a woman could do this work. So there were some obstacles. It probably took me a good year to prove myself. I remember one time I was brand new and I walked into the roll call room, which was kind of intimidating in 96, right? It was the older men that retired shortly after I started, and all these deputies that had been there for a few years. And I sat down, and one of the deputies came up to me and kind of said in a joking way, excuse me, young deputy, you're sitting in my seat. Will you please give me my chair back? So I looked at him and I stood up and I turned the chair around and I turned it upside down and I put it back down. I'm like, nope, doesn't have your name on it. And I sat back down on it. Everybody started laughing, and that kind of helped ease the way in with that shift that I was working.
Wow, that was brave. I mean, really.
Well, I had decided that I couldn't let them push me around, because if I let them push me around, I knew that I would not earn their respect. So I figured out a way to respectfully and keeping my own dignity, hold my own, which has always been really important in my career for me, is to maintain my integrity and not let people take that away from me.
So who have been your role models? Who's the one that has gone, okay, I want to be like this woman, or steal something from her, or get her integrity, or how did she do this? Who's your role model?
So a couple. One is my grandma, interestingly enough. She was born in 1901. She only got to go to school to 8th grade. When she was in 3rd grade, she had to start working. She worked at a cigar factory, rolling cigars. I have a picture of her standing on a crate. And actually, I'm not even sure she got up to 8th grade, because she taught herself to write cursive. She learned how to print in school, but she missed so much school because she had to work. That was back in the early 1900s, and she self-taught herself. And she really impressed me. She made a good life for herself, and you would never know that she didn't get through school. And I really admired her perseverance. Then when I worked at the Rape Crisis Center, I met a female detective at North Chicago PD. And I thought she was amazingly cool. She was very tough. She seemed kind of tough, almost a little intimidating, but I worked a sexual assault case with her. And she was very kind and compassionate to the victim or survivor, as we would say, of the assault. And she just really impressed me, that you could still be strong and show that empathy.
So I suspect in your path that on your career, that there have been times when you have thought, okay, I'm done with this. Forget it. This is too much. But what kept you going on the path?
So honestly, until I got close to retirement, I don't think I ever thought, oh, I've had enough. I loved it. I loved the challenges. I loved working with people. Every day it was a different challenge, and I found it very rewarding to work a case and help people find justice or find their voice.
Mhm.
And that's
So,
kind of what kept me going.
so what's the well, okay, average is a crazy word. And I can't even say normal. What's the day of a police officer? I can't use normal. I can't say average because there's nothing normal or average about being a police officer. So what
That's
is it
true.
like?
So to be completely honest, when you're on patrol, there is a big chunk of boring time, right? It's not always go, go, go.
Right.
On midnights, we had some midnights on the weekends in the summer where it was go, 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 where the calls are stacking up and you are literally running from one call to another. And it depends on the shift you work. When you work afternoon shift, which is at least at the sheriff's office, it is from like 2:30 in the afternoon to 11 at night. So that then you get a lot of neighbor problems and parents having issues with their kids and taking runaway, missing juvenile or runaway juvenile reports, domestic situations. And then when you get into the midnight shift, you still get those things, but on midnights it changes a little bit because it seems like about 3/4 of the calls we would receive on midnights involved alcohol or drugs.
So
And
what's the scariest part of the job, do you think? In anything that you have done in your life, what's the scariest?
Actually, what's been the scariest has also been the most exhilarating and the most rewarding. I worked undercover for a couple of years, or for about 9 months with Waukegan PD. That was an awesome experience. So I had to wear a wire, and
Wow.
that was very cool. But there was one time when I was buying drugs when I got locked into a house where I was buying the drugs, and I got very scared then, and it turned out fine. They let me go, and then without a problem. And another time I got a call that someone had just stolen a case of beer out of the refrigerator of a restaurant bar. And this is around midnight. So I go to the call and I find the guy walking. He was a big guy, big burly guy. And he did not like that I stopped him. And he was very argumentative towards me, would not comply. I asked him, for an ID, just the basic stuff. Hi, my name is, I'm Deputy Osry. I was called here because there was an incident. I need to speak to you for a minute. Could I see your ID, please? I'm going to say that's one thing that I'm very proud of. Everybody I dealt with, I always treated people how I would want to be treated if I was stopped or if a family member of mine was stopped by the police. But anyway, so he was very argumentative, and I called for backup, and he started getting a little aggressive towards me. He didn't hit me, but like the stance, like he wanted to fight me. And that's when 2 other deputies pulled up. We tried to take him into custody because he had the stolen beer on him. He clenched his fists. He got ready to fight. The other two deputies each grabbed one arm. They said, spray him. So I pulled out the pepper spray and I sprayed him. The pepper spray did not affect him, but my partners got some pepper spray and it affected them.
Oh, wow.
So they dropped down to their knees, and this man was very angry, and he starts walking towards me, and he's got his arms up, and he's like, what are you gonna do to me now? And he called me that B word.
Yes.
And I will say my knees started shaking, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I'm nervous, but I learned how to protect myself. I pulled out my ASP, which is the expandable baton, But by the time that happened, more people came to help me, and we were able to safely get him into custody. He didn't get hurt, we didn't get hurt, and it turned out to be a good night.
So have you ever been shot, or has someone shot you?
No. I have had to pull my gun once or twice on people. I have fortunately have not ever had to shoot anyone, nor have I been shot at. I have been in close proximity to other police that have been shot at, and I've responded to calls when police have been shot at, but no, not personally myself.
So what has been the most rewarding part of your career?
The most rewarding part of my career. So there's two parts. When I was the school resource officer, I was very involved with the kids. I was very involved in the school. In fact, myself and the drug counselor started the first cheerleading squad for special ed. Yes. So I had a really great rapport with most of the students. And those I did have to arrest some of them. And it seemed like whenever I did have to arrest them, they would come back to me after I had to arrest them, and they apologized for their behavior and talked about how much it changed their life, and would be one of my buds that would stop by to say hello to me every day. So that was extremely rewarding. Also working sex abuse and physical abuse cases, although they're very sad, working with those children. So I had a case. This is going back to about 2007, and there was 3 girls that were being hurt at home. And I took the case, and I spent a lot of time with these girls. They had to be interviewed, and then they had to go to the hospital to be examined, and I went through all that with them. We arrested their parents. The parents admitted to what happened. Jump ahead a little bit, the dad was sentenced to 105 years in prison, and the mom was sentenced to 12 years. But meanwhile, so these girls unfortunately had to go into a foster home. And I was able to meet their foster parent the next day. And they had amazing foster parents. And I met the family of the foster parents. And so then we went to court, we testified, all that, right? We won the case because the parents were both sentenced. But when I was a sergeant in investigations, we had a college intern come in, and she and I were talking, and she was asking me what case really impacted my life. And I was telling her about this case, and she says, "Oh my gosh, it's you. You're the reason I became a cop." She was a little girl when she was the daughter of the parents who took those children as foster. So those were her foster sisters.
Wow.
So that was pretty amazing. Another family I helped, mom had issues. There was some domestic violence in the home against the children and mom. They were here from another country. The house was a hoarder house. I interviewed and talked to the children and the parents, and we were able to get social services involved.
Right.
And the children were able to remain with, the family remained together. And I was working in my uniform at the Lake County Fair, maybe 2 years after that case. And the oldest girl recognized me and came running up to me and gave me a big hug and said, "Thank you so much. Our family is doing so much better." So to me, that's what keeps me fueled and kept me going.
Wow. So you mentioned that you worked with teenagers that got into some type of trouble. So if they made the decision, if they got arrested or in some trouble, could they become police officers?
They can. They can. Obviously, though, if it's a really heinous crime like murder, probably not. And as long as it's not a felony. even if it's a felony as juveniles, there's much more leeway. But I would say if you want to become a cop, try to do the best you can, be a good person. We all make mistakes, right? So you get in trouble with the police, you get a speeding ticket, you do something stupid, you get in a fight. The important thing is to learn from it and move on and not let it hold you down, because we're all human. And the important thing is to learn from our mistakes and grow. So yes, absolutely.
So what would you say to a teenager that says to you, you know what, I really don't trust the police? What could you possibly say?
That's very valid now, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
It always has been. It always has been, but that's coming to light. Personally, and I can only speak personally from my experience, the majority of cops that I worked with are good people and mean well. They sometimes may come off a little abrasive, but that being said, I also know that I have met cops, and being a cop myself and meeting them, they were just really jerks in other parts of the country or maybe in other parts. But overall, from my experience, most cops care. They're committed to their community and they want to make their community a better place. So my advice is, if being a teenager and you get stopped, call your parents right away or ask that your parents be called right away, and be polite.
So tell me what you do for self-care, because you have all this stuff coming at you all the time, trauma, drama, emotions up for grabs. What do you do to take care of you?
So a lot of it depended on what was going on. I worked a couple cases where some infants were I have worked several cases where infants have passed away. So then what I would do on cases like that to decompress, I would go visit my neighbor who had a brand new baby and ask if I could hold and rock her baby. And I said, I just need to see a healthy, beautiful baby. So that's how I tried to balance it. I worked with a lot of kids with a lot of issues. I became a Girl Scout leader. I was a Girl Scout leader for 9 years. That gave me balance because I was doing positive things with youth. And then reading and exercising.
Wow, that's great.
So
do you have any regrets? Anything that you think, oh, I should have done this differently? Or
I think we all have regrets, and we all get crabby sometimes, right, or in a bad mood. And sometimes when that happens, I'm like, I should have done. But overall, sitting here now and looking back, I think that my life played out the way it was supposed to play in the succession that it played. And now I am here back in social services. I started in social services, I went to law enforcement, and now I'm back in social services. And my motto has kind of been, like with police work, I told you why I became a cop. So my motto has always kind of been, be the change you want to see.
Yes.
Do your part to make the world a better place.
That's true. It is really important that you impact it. So, so visualize in your mind, you have someone standing in front of you saying, I want to be really like you. I love everything you said. I really think I could do this. What do I need to do?
So you need to, there is one regret. I never finished college. Finish college.
Okay.
It does help if you have a degree to become a cop. Most places, at least at the sheriff's office, they say it's a requirement, but they often waive it. And you don't have to get a degree in criminal justice. You can get a degree in anything. So like we have people that have engineering degrees, believe it or not, and they are accident reconstructionists. So they are not just an investigator, but they take it a level higher. They find the little black box in the car and they do extensive diagrams and investigation. We have, the sheriff's office has somebody that was actually an instructor at Northwestern School of Public Safety. And I think do it for the right reason. I mean, it sounds very cliche, I want to help people. but when do people call the police? People call the police when they're at their worst moment, right? When it's a problem that they can't handle. And I think it's really important to have some empathy and not go in there like, oh, I'm going to fix this and tell everybody what to do. But to come in with a little bit of empathy, a little bit of compassion, and work through the situation and try to resolve it in the best interest for everyone.
So you have done a variety of different things throughout your career so that you're well-rounded in a variety of different perspectives. Do you think that things happened the way they did so that you could be in the place that you are right now? I mean, you started off in social service, you went to the law enforcement, and now you're back. Is it sort of a cosmic, karmic intervention of sorts?
Maybe.
It seems like it.
And also, and this is something I didn't touch on, and this goes to somebody who wants to be a cop. I didn't become a cop till I was 35. And I think that my life experience really helped, right? So people, if somebody wants to be a cop and you start applying when you're 21, which is the youngest that you can become a cop, don't get discouraged. Some people test and test and test, and they might have to test at different departments 3, 4, 5 times before they get hired. I fortunately tested at the sheriff's office and I got hired. But I think having some life experience, nothing wrong with waiting till you're 25, nothing wrong to waiting till you're 28 and having some life experience. I just think being a police officer is a lot of responsibility. You're driving a squad car, you are carrying a gun, you're responsible for your life, for other people's lives, you're responsible for protecting property and people. And I think that's one of the greatest honors that could be bestowed on someone. But I also think that you have to have a level of maturity to manage all that.
Makes sense. Well, I don't know. I think I've asked you every conceivable possible question. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Do you want to hear one funny story?
Yes.
That my children.
Some comedy. Yes.
This story. It's a police related, so it turned out really well. But so I was working midnights, and my partner at the time, he was like a 6'4", 320-pound guy, huge, right? So we get a call at like 5 in the morning from a limo driver who was at a woman's residence to pick her up, to take her to the airport. Her front door was partially open. Her bedroom window was on the first floor. The curtains were open. He could see a suitcase on the bed. He could see the suitcase open. So we don't know what's going on. So we get to the house, and the driver tells us that he's been driving this woman for years for her trips. And she's never late, and he's concerned because the front door is open and her suitcase is open, and that this woman is around 80 years old, right? So we're thinking, oh no, she passed away. So we knock on the door, she didn't answer. He had told it, the limo driver had told us her name, so we're yelling her name. She's not answering. We walk through the upstairs, she's not answering. There's stairs to the basement lights on, we go down. And at the end of the hallway, there's a room and then a hallway. And at the end of the hallway, looks like it might be a bedroom. So my partner's going, you go first. And I'm like, no, you go first. So he went first, and he goes into the room, and I go into the room, and this woman is very peacefully laying in bed like this. So we both are thinking she probably passed away because her alarm's going off. She's not answering. So he leans over to grab her wrist to take her pulse to see if she's alive. And as he's bending over, I'm bending over him, and she sat up. She was perfectly 100% alive. She sat up, she screamed because we scared her. She didn't know we were there. Her sitting up and screaming scared us. He jumped backwards into me. I fell backwards onto her floor, and the three of us were screaming. And after that, we all laughed. But that was kind of my family enjoys that story.
Well, that sounds like a great story. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for all the fabulously amazing things that you have done, your service. I know that you have impacted people just based on everything that you have said, and try not to be shocked, but we have been talking for a half an hour.
I know. I
And you
hope
thought you could only talk for 10 minutes.
I know. Well, thank you very much. And I want to say to everyone who organized the Girl Wise Conference, thank you very much. And to all the young women out there, I wish you all the best. I hope you find fulfillment and some meaning in your life. And good luck to all of you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.